Just when you thought it was safe to watch videos again on the internet comes Tales from Someplace Besides the Garage. Hey, I'm back again doing another video. This isn't actually the video I was planning on doing. I was planning on doing a video possibly on Jack DeJohnette, focusing on some of his more obscure albums, or I should say his non-ECM albums. And then last night I learned of the passing of Dave Samuels, the great vibraphone and marimba player. Very sad, because it wasn't that long ago that I learned about the drummer Mike DePasqua's passing. And I was a big fan of Mike DePasqua as well. And the two of them played together. As a matter of fact, my very favorite Dave Samuels projects were the two that he played with Michael DePasqua. So it's kind of sad to see them both gone now. Dave Samuels was 70 years old. I didn't know he was ill, but apparently it was fairly well known amongst people that followed him, but I don't know where they found that information out. But apparently his health hadn't been great for some time, which I was not aware of. So it came as much more of a blow to me to find out about his passing. Selfishly, I guess, I'm sad. One of the projects that I was always hoping we would hear more of is the Gallery album. I don't have my table here, so I got to reach around for everything. Here's the Gallery album on ECM. This was 82, I think it was. 1980. Recorded in May 1981, released in 82. And this had Dave Samuels and Mike DePasqua and David Darling on cello, and Paul McCandless from Oregon on saxophone. Now, I got to see a free concert, no less, on a Sunday afternoon. Dave Samuels, and it's not in his biography, actually, that's on Wikipedia, but for a number of years, Dave Samuels was teaching music at a college here in New Jersey. Strangely enough, the Wikipedia article doesn't make any mention of that. But he was there for a number of years, and on a Sunday afternoon, he gave a free concert with kind of a reconstituted version of Gallery, with David Darling on cello and Paul McCandless on reeds. But the Mike DePasqua didn't play drums at that concert, unfortunately. But I, strangely enough, had seen him the night before playing with the Jan Garber group. So the reason he didn't play with Gallery was because he was actually touring at the time with the Jan Garber group. And Mark Johnson was the fill-in bass player at that Gallery concert. So at that time, Gallery wasn't kind of an ongoing band. I don't think they ever were, actually. I think they might have done a handful of gigs and did this one-off album. And I actually asked Paul McCandless once when I saw him if it were possible at Gallery would ever record again, and he said, "Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. There's no reason why they couldn't." Well, now they can't, but indeed they didn't. And back when I asked Paul McCandless, that was like 1980 something, 84 maybe, 83 I think. So that was a long time ago, but I still always held out hope. That Dave Samuels would play with Gallery again. And, at that time, I was hoping Mike DePasqua would be part of it. So here's the other Mike DePasqua project that Dave Samuels did as well, the ECM Double Image album, Dawn, which Double Image recorded a whole bunch of albums. Actually, I don't even have the last two. They self-released two albums. Their last two albums, which one was an in-concert album. And they kind of released it on their own label. And it was totally unknown to me that it even existed until I looked it up. And it's like copies to get it is near impossible. But Double Image did start off as a quartet with two vibraphone players, Dave Samuels and David Friedman. I learned David Friedman actually was one of the people that taught Dave Samuels in his youth. And then they gathered together in this quartet. Initially, Double Image was a quartet, with Harvey Swartz on bass and Mike DePasqua again on drums. And they made 2 albums as a quartet, and then a bunch of albums after that just as a duo with just the 2 vibraphone players and no percussion section. So the other Double Image album, I guess this was their first one. That I didn't prepare for this at all. That was initially done in 1977 with Harvey Swartz, Mike DePasqua, Dave Samuels, and Dave Friedman. Came out on the Angel label, which thankfully they did reissue on CD, though I think this is out of print now. So this is a good one. And then there's that second album came out on ECM, and it was the only one on ECM. And ECM still hasn't released that one on compact disc. Then a number of years later, about 1986, didn't hear much from the band, I guess until that point, until about 1986. And they came out with this wonderful album, In Lands I Never Saw, which is my favorite album of theirs that they did as a duo without the percussion section. So it was just Dave Samuels and Dave Friedman. A little bit later on, for the DMP label in '94, they did this album called Open Hand, again as a duo. I think this is live in the studio, or this might even be a live concert. I'm not sure. But I don't hear any overdubbing or anything like that. Not that they ever did a whole lot of that. And got a couple other one-off projects. It's kind of weird for me seeing Dave Samuels on a GRP label. I never associated him with smooth jazz, and I'll get to that in a second. Here's one of his albums he did, very smooth jazz-ish sounding, De La Soul, from Dave Samuels' solo album in '93 on GRP. You know, very slick sounding. Now, to me, let me show these. I'll explain later. Later on, he formed another project, but he was the leader of the project, the Caribbean Jazz Project. You can see the name Dave Samuels on it, though I think in the later on he didn't always put his name on there. But it was basically him and just a whole bunch of other musicians, and he really liked this Caribbean jazz thing. This particular one was on Concord Records. This is from 2003. Had some guests on here like Randy Brecker, Mark Walker on drums, who's now the drummer for Oregon, and just a whole bunch of Caribbean jazz. I'm not big into Caribbean jazz, but I bought it because I like Dave Samuels so much. Another Caribbean jazz thing. This one was actually from 2001. Was this Concord as well? Yeah, on Concord. Another Caribbean Jazz Project album. With Dave Valentine on flutes, Steve Kahn also on guitar, so it's a bit of an odd grouping of musicians, but guest artists include Pancho Sanchez. Again, I'm not big into the kind of up-tempo Caribbean jazz stuff, but I bought it because I love Dave Samuels' work so much. Here's a bit of an odd one, and one that I really actually like. Maybe because of the lineup, from 1998. So I guess this was a little bit before he formed the Caribbean Jazz Project. And Double Image was always kind of like an on-again, off-again project for them. Interesting trio album. Steeplechase. Now Steeplechase is a label I'm not sure of. I think they're still around. But it's Andy Laverne on piano, Dave Samuels on vibes, and Jay Anderson on upright bass. So it's a really nice trio of bass, piano, and vibes. No drums. Between Earth and Mars. Just a really nice album from 1998. You know, aside from... This is probably my favorite thing that he did, besides the gallery and the Double Image project stuff. But now, see, when I got into Dave Samuels, the internet didn't exist. So if you found the musician you liked... you had to pretty much either find things that they recorded under their own name or flip through a lot of group albums. You know, for instance, how would I have known that Dave Samuels even formed the Caribbean Jazz Project before the internet if his name wasn't on it? Double Image, you don't know who's in Double Image. Gallery, you don't know who's in Gallery. Now with the internet, you can look up a musician and find every project they were involved in. But back in the day, in the late 70s, when I was late 70s, early 80s, when I was first getting into Dave Samuels, to just come across him in an album was something special because he was not recording albums as a leader under his own name at that time. So it's really, it was really something special to find him playing in something. And I know there's a lot that I missed. Now, I first discovered him, I don't know, probably through the Double Image album or through the Gallery album. And, would find him here and there in places. But I was probably the only guy in the world that knew Dave Samuels. I had no idea that he played in Spyro Gyra all those years. He wasn't necessarily an original member, but he was on the very early albums, kind of as a guest, as a regularly recurring guest on Spyro Gyra albums. But I didn't listen to Spyro Gyra. At that time, I didn't listen to pop jazz, smooth jazz, which wasn't even called smooth jazz yet at that time. I ignored that stuff totally. So I had no idea until, probably the early 90s or so, because I never even bought a Spyro Gyra album. I actually got a bunch of them now just because I found that Dave Samuels played with them. But it was well into the 90s before I discovered that Dave Samuels at first was a regular guest on the early Spyro Gyra albums. At some point became a full-time band member. And I guess even toured with the band. And then went back to pretty much appearing on their albums as a guest very frequently, but not a full-fledged member. So that was probably the best-known thing he ever did, but not to me. And, initially, when I found out that he was playing with Spyro Gyra, I couldn't put that together in my head because all of the stuff that I knew by him was the Gallery stuff, the Double Image albums, very much a chamber jazz kind of thing. And I was not used to hearing him play in the context of pop jazz, because this was even before the Caribbean Jazz Project and his solo GRP albums. But he was a man of wide talents, I'd say. And, when I did learn about him playing with Spyro Gyra, I was like, wow, how did I miss that? I think, I'm not sure if I learned, I must have learned that before the internet came along, but I didn't know that for many, many years that he had any affiliation with Spyro Gyra because I never listened to them and I never picked up their albums. Now I have a whole bunch of albums that he did with Spyro Gyra. Certainly not my favorite stuff, but he certainly lent a lot of class and a nice sonic, something different, because amongst all those smooth jazz bands, there's lots of guitars and keyboards and saxes, and a lot of them tend to sound the same. And, with him having the vibes in there, and maybe even the marimba a little bit at times, kind of added a different color that kind of made a slight bit of difference to them versus other groups doing similar music. However, the Gallery album will probably always be my favorite thing, and the Double Image albums that he's done. And, I hope in the future to maybe come across and find some of those projects of his that I don't have. But just, real saddened to learn of his passing, just like I was sad, when I learned many years after the fact, actually, that Mike DePasqua passed away, which I was unaware of. And to me, those two were always joined in my mind because my two favorite projects, those two guys happened to do together. Dave Samuels and Mike DePasqua, both in the band Gallery and in Double Image. So, I just wanted to give a nice hats off to Dave Samuels. R.I.P. I don't really believe in an afterlife, but if there is one, it would be great if there's a nice jam session going on with Mike DePasqua and Dave right now. So I'll be back with a regular feature soon, but I just wanted to do a little tribute to Dave Samuels. So hope everybody's doing well. Keeping this one short, under 15 minutes. That's incredible. And hope everybody's doing well. Take care.